out of the realm of possibility that he was like thinking about going for barrels, you know, or that just, you know, he still got 2 overcards and wants to fire, or, you know, certainly he could have, I think that he might actually value bet an ace if he hit it. You know,
I think it would definitely value bet a hand like ace jack. I'm wondering about the weaker ace X's, like if he barreled ace 6, ace 4, ace 2. Is he like? Do we think he's the type of guy who can value bet him, or is he just?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if he's value betting ace jack, he probably should be value betting those other hands because it's not likely that I have. Yeah, like I'm not just double floating him with bear ace 9, but I know what you mean. There's some guys that just kind of look at like the relative, the absolute strength of their hand. They're like, oh, ace queen, I bet, or you know, oh, ace deuce, I'm a little scared and decide to check. But I don't know what's the case with this guy, but I think he would probably be capable of value betting any ace. And to be honest, I think that he might even be able to value bet hands like, you know, jacks or queens or kings, simply for that same reason that like they're just good so often. Like for our range,
this ace didn't help much of our range. Yeah,
the ace just doesn't hit us. I mean, I could have ace 10, you know. And I could just have like a real stubborn ace 5 that wanted to peel, or if I had, I think ace 3, like he would expect me to fold unless it was specifically ace 3 of hearts, you know. So, but yeah, I agree. The ace just doesn't really help me, and it could certainly help him. And it's always possible that he's just, you know, if he was like barreling with ace queen, he might just barrel with. You know, he might bluff at the ace too. Like he's kind of nitty, so I don't know if that's the case. But you know, we did see that his river barrel was over our very limited sample was, you know, somewhat high, and it is blind versus blind, and the ace is obviously like, you know, the ultimate sleeper card. Yeah, you know, like everyone is scared of the ace, especially when you're like calling down against the pre-flop raiser. The ace hits, you're just always, oh, geez, he's, you know, now what do I don't even beat anything. So, you know, if he was electing to barrel with king queen or king jack, I think there's at least some chance. Or like you said, jack 9 suited, 8 9, anything that turned to draw, turned hearts, all that stuff might elect to bluff the ace. Any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think the ace definitely hits him harder than us. He might be capable of bluffing it, but at this point in the hand, I'm not convinced that there's a ton of hands that are going to need to bluff here. You know, they're kind of constrained. Like he's not always going to double barrel with a hand like king jack, king queen, queen jack. Like he's not always going to double barrel those, and then 8 9 is basically the only other hand that might need to bluff. So there's not a whole ton of hands that are going to have to bluff this river.
Yeah, I would tend to kind of agree with that. And at the time, you know, my feeling was that he could value bet any ace that he hit, and probably could even value bet that. I did also feel at the time that it was played that he would be able to value bet jacks and queens and kings here.
Sure.
You know, I don't know if that's true for him, but I remember, you know, at the time that kind of being my assumption. So
let's see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. If he checks, by the way, I'm not going to turn my hand into a bluff or anything. I think I'm just going to check back if he checks, most likely.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if he does check a hand better than ours on the river, I don't think he's folding it very often. If he's checking jacks on the river, I think he's just checking to call. Yeah,
I mean, there's a chance he could check fold, but really it's like it's just basically like jacks and queens and kings that
I agree.
Specifically we'd be trying to, and even those I said that I thought that he would be more likely to value bet. So if he does check, I don't think that there's anything to do there. So he does bet, and he bets $21.
What do you think about shoving?
I think it's pretty cool.
I'm glad you did this.
This is sort of the crux of the hand. I'm glad you said that, so I don't feel like a spew monkey now. But yeah, I felt like the reason I shoved here, guys, is that I felt like I felt like if he's got jacks or queens or kings, he's definitely folding. And if he has a bluff, he's obviously folding, which, you know, that's not necessarily an argument for shoving because I could just call, but I don't think there's really much merit in just calling.
Yeah, I mean, I think given the assessment of his range, that we kind of decided that there's not a whole lot of hands that are going to need to bluff the river. So like we can't really bluff catch here. Like if you back it up one thing before you shove.
Sure.
So we're getting 2.5 to 1. We need to be good 30% of the time almost, and I just don't think that we're anywhere close to having a 30% bluff range on this river, on this board. So our options are to fold, which is an okay answer. I mean, just folding here because he's so likely to have us beat, and he has such a wide value range and such a narrow bluffing range. I think folding is okay, but I think that we can jam, and we can easily represent a hand like ace 10, pocket 10s, pocket 3s, pocket 5s, even pockets. Like we can have every set. We can have ace 10. We can possibly have a hand like ace 5 and possibly shove it for value, although he might not give us credit for that. But we can easily rep like a really strong hand here, and we would play it exactly the same way. We would call flop, call turn, and jam river.
The other thing that I think makes the shove kind of cool is that for our perceived range, there was no draws on the flop. Mm-hmm. So in order for us to show up with a bluff here, we would have to be like, if we were just bluff raising like total air, we would have to have double floated, with some kind of like total air ball, which is kind of unlikely. So it's not like a flush draw missed, mm-hmm. Or an obvious straight draw missed. Mm-hmm. And he might just, say, oh, screw it, the flush draw missed, so I call, because he could be bluffing, Yeah, so there's really not like obvious bluffs for us to rep.
Yeah, so like in the same vein that we said he doesn't have any hands that really need to bluff this river, he's sitting here, he's looking at his card. Let's just give him, for example, ace queen. Let's say he double barreled ace queen, and now he has an ace on the river, and we jam, and he's going to look at our range and be like, geez, like the only hand that can be bluffing me here is if he's deciding to turn a 10 into a bluff, which I don't give anyone credit for almost ever.
Sure.
So I mean, I think unless this guy is super showdown bound and unable to fold a pair, which is not the case with this guy. We can look
at his went to showdown is 23%. Sorry, you guys, you hear my dog barking in the background. Probably he's spazzing a little. The neighbors got their dog out back, but yeah.
Anyway, so like he doesn't seem super showdown bound. He seems kind of like a normal, decent thinking tag, and I think that he can only put us on really strong hands here.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think if he has ace queen or ace king here, I think it's a pretty trivial fold for him. Also his sizing, when he bets 21 and he's still got 63 left in his stack, there's plenty of room for him to bet fold.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's not like there's any sort of sense that like, oh, the pot's too big, it's going to be hard for him to fold. Now, if he has pocket 3s or pocket 5s or pocket 7s or pocket aces, obviously he's calling.
Yeah, he's snap calling. But his range is so much wider than that.
There are certainly hands that he can have that they're going to call, but yeah, I agree that his range is going to be way, way wider than that when we talk about, first of all the ace-x he could have barreled, and then certainly jacks or queens or kings, or even going for thin value with like a king 10, or, even if he decided that, and obviously all his bluffs are going to fold as well. So
yeah, I mean, that's actually an important thing to point out. When we are like we said, he doesn't have enough bluffs for us to be able to call the river, but he does have some percentage of bluffs, right? So now we get him to fold his made hands as well as his bluffs, but because we can't profitably call against his bluffs, like, I don't know if I'm explaining this right.
Yeah,
like
that makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah, the fact that he's able to fold his bluffs as well as his made hands makes us, certainly better than calling.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much exactly why I did it. I think from his point of view, it's just really hard for me to show up with a bluff here, and his range is going to have certainly a few things that can call, but lots of stuff that can't call. And I could easily, I can certainly credibly be repping like a slow played set on this line with this line, or just ace 10 or some sort of aces up, and the fact that there's no draws makes my line pretty credible here. So I I did end up jamming, and he didn't end up folding. So I thought that was a pretty cool river spot, and I thought it was kind of interesting from the sense that a lot of times, players, they get in a spot like this, and they don't really consider raising because we have a made hand. It's not like most people would think that, we need to bluff. It's either call or fold.
Yeah, I think, in fact, I'm gonna title this video like "Don't forget that all 3 buttons" or something along those lines. That's what I'm gonna call this video when we post it, because this is an important thing. Like you get into a spot, and a lot of times with a hand like this, you forget that you have a raise button, and you just kind of like click call or fold. But you have to consider like all 3 options. Like raising is always an option. It's not always the best option. In this spot, I think it is. But considering all 3 options before you make a decision is pretty important. And too many times, especially micro stakes guys, get into spots and they just only look at 2 buttons. Like call or fold, call or raise. Like they never look at the other one.
I agree. And then one last kind of closing thought is that when you do make a play like this, obviously, when he snap calls and rolls over aces, you feel kind of dumb, Yeah. It makes your initial human reaction is going to be that like, oh, I'm terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a spew monkey. And there certainly are times that we all are spew monkeys, but as long as we kind of keep in mind that we have, a sound thought process and we're keeping in mind his range, and thinking about what we're trying to accomplish, we know that, okay, it's not going to work every time. He's just going to have a set sometimes. Like that's going to happen. And there could even be some times that he's on tilt and we don't know it and he just makes a bad call with ace king, like that can happen some percentage of the time. So, the thing is that I believe that this play in this spot is going to work a lot more often than it fails.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think we just rep so strong he has to fold. I agree. So.
All right. Well, I don't really have anything else to add unless you do, Sean.
No, I think that's it. Cool hand. Check us out, 6g1p.com if you're looking for coaching, or just PM us on the on 2+2. We'll be around to answer questions about this hand or any other like random micro stakes questions you might have. Thanks for watching, guys.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care.